So how do you distance yourself from your emotions and your mind? Well, anyone that's read The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, the first page in the book says you are not your mind. And you read the rest of the book and you might be like, what does that even mean? I don't even know what that means. So a lot of times what happens when we have thoughts and emotions, right? Because emotions are the body's response to thoughts, as Eckhart Tolle says, and it's true. When we have a thought or an emotion, right, we naturally just believe it and attach to it, right? Because we're so plugged into it. We're so plugged into it. We just believe it to be reality. And a lot of times these thoughts and these emotions just aren't true. Most of the time they aren't true, right? But we attach ourselves to them so quickly and easily. And like, why? Because what else is out there? What else would there be to attach ourselves to if it's not our thoughts and our emotions? What if I told you you could distance yourself from those emotions and thoughts and maybe have space between the emotional reaction and the thought that happens, so maybe you don't have to listen to it as easily, and it doesn't affect you as much. You can finally get that good night's rest. Stop worrying, stop obsessing over the future or that relationship that's kind of going haywire. I love those. So much fun. So much energy and time. So what I do, and this is what worked for me, and this was a slow process. It took many, many years. I've talked about this a little bit more in other videos, but there's an observer, right, that we're not aware of most of the time because we're so caught up in our thoughts and our emotions. We identify with them so much. There's an observer. And that observer, it's silence, it's space. And a lot of times we don't want to believe it because it's just like there's no tangible evidence that this is true, right? Science won't tell you that this is true. You go online and you think it's a bunch of hippy-dippy stuff. So close your eyes and try to visualize your thoughts and your emotions in front of you. Right? Try this when you're meditating. Try this just when don't do it when you're driving. That's a mistake. But or just when you're just at a standstill, when you have a moment, right? And when you're having that emotional reaction, like visualize it just right in front of you, like someone's watching it from a third person perspective, but they're not judging it. There's no talking coming from this person. There's no thoughts coming from this observer. It just simply is observing. That's it. Silence. It's silence and there's no judgment. That's what the mistake a lot of people fall into is they start to judge their own thoughts and emotions. And then the mind becomes louder and you're like, man, this spiritual practice sucks. Observe it. And that might only happen for a second. But what ends up happening is you might be able to feel for a minute that space that's in between your thought and your emotion and then your reaction to it. And that's like visualization of having it in front of you might only be like a foot, like an inch or two away, right? Because it's so loud, you're so identified with your mind. It's like you're taking like a piece of gum that's stuck to a wrapper and you're just slow in the gum, right, as your observer, and you're slowly just yanking it away, but the gum is sticking so hard and eventually you pull it free and then it gets further and further away, right, from the wrapper. The wrapper is your mind and your emotions, but it's sticky. It's so hard because you're so identified with it so long. You're like, oh, I gotta yank this off. It doesn't want to come off, but eventually it's going to come off and get further and further, as I said. And that's where stability and calmness come in. You're never going to not have those thoughts and those emotions, ever, because you're human. So, people that are saying that nothing matters and nothing exists, that's not true. Like, you're never going to get rid of that. So, but it just becomes the volume of the thoughts and the emotions just gets so much more dim. It's like you turn the volume down on a speaker. You're listening to music maybe. I really like Kygo. But you turn down the Kygo, you turn down the music, so you can still hear it. It's never gonna not be there. You just don't attach to it, and you just don't really listen to it so much anymore. That's the piece. That book, Eckhart Tolle, has all kinds of techniques and strategies and stuff on how to do it. I highly recommend you read or listen to his book. It's free on YouTube. Now, some of the stuff I found doesn't work for me. Some of the stuff works for me, right? In the beginning, I did all of his techniques and strategies to find out which ones worked. But the ones that I have found over time that really worked for me it's like hard because I'm trying to think about like when this is years ago when I was like coming into this place. Focusing on the silence was a really big one. I would pick a point. I remember, so I was in basic training in the Army because I was in the Army, right? And good times. When I was in basic training, we were in like a big bay. It was like a Gen Pop prison. And there was like 50 other guys in this room, and it was so loud and obnoxious and ridiculous. And it was I remember I didn't have a quiet for 6 months. I never experienced a quiet for 6 months straight. And as a sensitive guy, as an empath, man, that's where I thrive. So that was really hard. But I remember what I would do is I would be sitting on my bunk bed, and they're all lined up, right? And watch any military movie, it hasn't changed. They're all lined up, and I would just sit there and meditate in my bed, and I would pick a spot in the whole room, right? I would just visualize that spot in the room, and that was silence. That was just space right there. Even though everything else around me was loud and radio's playing and people are yelling and screaming and fighting and gambling, and it was like prison. But I would visualize that space, and I would focus on that space. And in that space is silence, and it calmed me down. And I remember I was meditating in the corner. I was meditating in the corner a couple times, and a couple of people came over, and they're like, "Hey man, what is this?" Some kid from, some guys from, Nebraska, Lincoln, wherever the heck, Lincoln, Nebraska would be like, "What is this meditation you speak of?" This guy, but everyone else is so stressed and freaked out that they would want to get in on it. They're like, well, anything to get out of this crap, I want to hear myself think. And what we would do is I told everyone to sit down, we'd sit in a circle, like a kumbaya, all crisscross, right? And I would tell everyone, like, this in the center right here, in the center in between all of us is the silence. It's like a pool of silence. And when we meditate and when we do our breathing and we do our meditation, and our practice, and I told them to visualize their thoughts and their emotions in front of them. And I was telling them for myself too. I was telling this for myself. This wasn't just to help them. This was for me as well. This wasn't just for them. I promise you. I was just doing my thing, But that space that we had created, that silence, that's what we focused on. And so a lot of people aren't in that situation and basically locked in this prison cell with 50 other people, this big room with 50 other people. So it's pretty easy. You can just go to any peaceful place, nature, your room, wherever you want to go, and just focus on the silence. And now this is where a lot of people mess up, though. And this is the big mistake that I made, is that I'd read a book or I'd listen to a video like this, and what would happen is I wasn't as good. I would start judging myself. I wasn't as good as, I wanted to be. I could only maybe hold that space or, distance myself so much from my thoughts and my emotions, visually speaking. And then I'd be like, why can't I do it more? I should do it more. Then I'd start thinking again. The emotional reaction would come back, and then I would judge myself. I'd get really upset because I thought was better than I was. That's an ego thing, and you have to just be where you're at. Don't judge it. That defeats the whole purpose of the practice, right? A lot of people talk about in like meditation, like they say, try to control your thoughts. I mean, do you know how much energy it takes to control your thoughts? It's a lot of energy. I think a better way to explain it is to just let your thoughts be your thoughts and stay distant from them and just observe them, right? And then when thoughts happen that might not be the best thoughts, like that might break your discipline or just, things that aren't good, right? Whatever it is, just simply let them be there. Just let them be there. When they're there, yeah, they'll just go away naturally, because what you resist and what you push away persists. It will. The more you attach to something, the more it's going to stick around. The more you resist it, the more it persists. You just got to let it go. That's a big trap that people fall into. Just like, okay, I guess I'm thinking about this. Okay, I guess I have an emotional, even if you have a big emotional reaction to it, it's just accept it. It's like, okay, I'm really, really mad right now. I have this I'm losing my cool right now. All right, just lose your cool. Don't judge that. Just lose your cool, because you're still going to be human. You're always going to be human. But that doesn't mean we need to attach. And that doesn't mean that we need to always allow us to believe that our thoughts and our emotions are us or are true. All right. That observer is who you are. Now we can talk about what this actually is in a much more deeper video, but for now we'll just call it the observer. I can't help but saying it, like, that's your God essence. That's the universe, man. That's who you really are, right? It's your true nature, authentic nature. I love how Eckhart Tolle just calls it the observer, though, because it's a way for us to relate. Yeah, but I would say that's how I started to distance myself from my emotions and my thoughts. And over time, over the years, it just got better and better and better and better. And then what's cool is when you do observe those thoughts and those emotions, you can start to really ask. You're not judging, you're just asking, like, why am I thinking like this? Why did I have a reaction to that? That's the next step. You can observe, and then you start to introspect. When you start to introspect, you begin to change and become empowered and to let go. All right. Then you get a really calm mind. All right. Have a great day.